Okay. We're gonna try this. See how this goes. I swapped this over to a different bit rate. So hopefully that does something. So okay, audio check. Okay, audio. Okay, cool. All the audio works. Let's pop out our chat tabs. Pop out the activity feed. Hope you all are doing well today. All right. Now that that's up and ready and we're all good to go, how are we doing today? So last you all were here, I was working on the behavior system. Basically, I'm actually so mad. You don't understand. I was pissed, okay? I spent like we spent like 2 weeks, 3 weeks on and off. Granted, I had like a fuck sleep schedule, so I wasn't working as consistently as I had been. But like, I still spent like a week or two looking into like how to build a chess engine, tinkering around with it, realizing that I had like way too many world states because my game is more complicated than chess. Trying to limit it down, trying to narrow it down over and over and over and over and over again until I finally got it down to like basically only depth one for one enemy. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through each enemy, and each enemy would check its world states, make a decision, and then we'd go to the next enemy. But as I was writing it, like 2.5 weeks into this bullshit, I realized that I doesn't even matter, because if I do like seeing into the future, what would happen is because this game has stealth, if you're ever looking for the player, you would immediately always know where the player is if you were one action away, or however many actions away that I did depth to. So like if you're directly behind the enemy and it's been just walking down the hallway the whole time, but now you're like within line of sight, if it turned around, well, it will turn around every time because it's going to see all the world states and then realize that that's the best one. So I basically made every enemy a precog, and also was doing a system where you had to generate world states for every single possible action you would take, which was stupid. So I had to completely scrap it after like 2.5 weeks because I didn't think far enough ahead to realize it, and I was fucking dumb. So instead, I then looked into a bunch of different like classical like game AIs because I'm not making a whole new non-existent architecture. I don't have the experience or the time for that, and so God, there's so much in here I should delete. Basically, I ended up going with a utility AI, which the short summary is that every action is evaluated on compared to every other action, and you kind of just do like a heuristic based on your conditions. So like if you're doing if the action is should I heal myself, then all you're going to do is you're going to have a formula that's like keeping track of health to max health. So maybe it's just a straight line of just health divided by max health, and that's your percentage, or maybe it's, health divided by, maybe it's health, but it's like exponential, so that once you, like, the closer you get to zero, the steeper the curve is, but it starts off lower. Or maybe it's an S function that's like more skewed to the bottom where it just gets radically more, but then after like 20% it's basically the same thing as if it was 0. There's a whole bunch of different ways you could do it, and you can modify that formula a whole bunch of different ways. But you basically just do a formula for each action, and then you evaluate it, and then you check to see, do you want to always do the best action? Do you want to do one of the top 3 actions? Whatever it is, you'll pick one of those actions, and then you do that thing. That system of like iterating through, valuing everything, and spitting it out took me 2 hours. Granted, it's not fully set up, because it still needs like, what would you say? Like the actual checks, like, oh, I'm a line of sight to the player, or health divided by max health for get health or whatever. Like those values aren't fully implemented yet because I don't know what actions I'm actually going to do. But like the architecture is just, all I go is I make a new condition if I want to make a new condition, and I make a new action plan if I want to make a new action plan, and then it will just work. And it's stupidly modular because now the way that it works is that each type of enemy, each archetype, saves a list of what's called utilities, which is a pairing of which is just a list of strategies. So it has the type, which is our plan, right? So maybe you have a plan like move, which is like an A star. So okay, cool, we have like approach. That's our like walk up, just basic move action. Cool, no problem. Walk to a point. And then we have prereqs, and those prereqs are our conditions. And so we can specify the type of condition, which is can see player might be an approach, or like can walk there might be like like a condition. And then formula is what type of thing we're doing: linear, curved, exponential, whatever. And then we just have our modifier values that we would change those with, and we would just plug those in. So all it's going to do is it's going to hop to the switch statement for the formula or for the type, read the formula, and then out with the whatever value can see player has. So if the can see player is evaluated on, let's say the ratio is like 0.7, right? That's can see player is going to be a bool, but maybe it's like health is 0.7. Cool, we're going to plug 0.7 into our formula with constant and exponent and multiplier, and then it's just going to output the return value, and that's it. Like, it's so stupidly simple, and it just works. It just does what I need to. The hard part is going to be balancing the thing so that it works, so that it is an intuitive AI, or that it feels natural for it, so in some ways I've offset the work that I'm doing, but code-wise, I did not mean to do that. Code-wise, it's done. I just have to implement the content. So there's 2 routes that I can go. I could go into implementing the content right now, because I have like a few basic enemies that I could test out the idea on and kind of see how that works. Or I could get the visual set up, because if we look right now, I also wrote a JSON importer for it, which is very nice. So now I can just go into my streaming assets, and I can just pull up JSON, and it just reads in all the data. And so I don't have I had a one big ass function in here that was just like raw reading in hard written values that I had, and I hated it. So now we have a JSON importer for it, which is quite nice. But yeah, so I need to make a spawn function, which is going to lead us into what I want to do. So we could focus on implementing the content for a behavior and testing the behavior, which is what I'll do next. After, what I want to do is I want to test the or I want to change the visuals to properly match. Why did it throw an error? Index out of range exception. Hold on. This wasn't happening a second ago. What did I fuck up? Undo. Index just had the... Oh wait, I was just writing this new function. Is that the issue? Hold on. There. Save real quick. I'm back. Oh, also, I have a new keyboard. I'm meaning to get something that's better for me because I've been using the keyboard too much and it was starting to fuck with my hands. And so a lot of people recommended the Kinesis, so I got that, but I'm still trying to get used to it. So my typing is slower than normal, so that's probably going to aggravate people, rightfully so. So forewarning. Next, on a range exception again. On line 124. On load archetypes, what did I do? The tiers.add no resize. Not tiers. New unsafe list. Size is count. Look at a persistent. Their memory length is equal to count. That zeroes out the collection, I thought. Hold on. I love post refactor errors. It's the best. How did we not trip the breakpoint? There we go. BSD. Okay. Tiers. That's gonna be down here. Should all just be 0. Yeah. Okay. And then index was out of bounds of the array. Okay, I guess we're gonna go here. Hold on. I don't know what it is about Writer unable to create breakpoints on certain lines, but it's about to drive me up a wall. Okay. Step over. Okay, we're in the for loop. Arches.length is 2. So this will be between... Why is I -1? Why is E -1? Well, I think that's the issue. Zero's over there. Now, fuck me. God damn it. Okay. Now, why that's happening, or why that's... I don't remember setting that to -1. But, that would explain a few things. Let me turn this off. Okay. And then we're gonna go back here, and we're gonna... Okay. Save real quick. Recompile. Index was still out of bounds? On 143. Okay, we've moved down. Why is this also -1? Why are all the numbers subtracted by 1? Hold on. Undo. Did I actually, like, shift the numbers by 1 somehow? These are all 1 less than they should be. Was there a bit flip? What the fuck happened? Hold on. Okay. Yeah, we're just gonna change all these to... I need to get used to the keyboard. Okay, hold on. Escape. What the fuck did I just press? Oh, I hit paste. I truly am at a loss for... There must be like a Vim button that I accidentally hit that subtracts 1 from all values. And I had it selected or something. I don't know. Okay, these should all be 0 now. And that should all be correct. Because we were checking for utilities.count is not equal to 0. Yep. We had looped through starting at 0 on the index. If a length is not equal to 0. Yeah, this is... Okay. Why is there a argument missing on line 37? Oh, because I started the fucking undo. Hold on. BSD.valueRO. Oh my god. I'm getting skill issued so fucking hard. Okay. Save. Alt tab. There we go. I don't know why the numbers shifted. It's kind of scary, actually. Hold on. I'm going to look it up. If maybe there's a macro accidentally hits or something. I'm not sure. Vim numbers are all 1 less. All numbers reduced by 1. I suspect that with a visual range, you hit Control X. In case you didn't figure it out, Control A will increment the next number online. Okay, hold on. So if I select, let's put it here, and we're going to Shift V. Okay. Shift V. We're just gonna do that, and then we're gonna hit Control X. Oh my god. Okay. Control X needs to be watched carefully. Got it. Okay, so we're gonna Shift V again. We're gonna run all the way back down through here. And then we're gonna do Control A. Okay. Good to know. Quicker fix. I feel like I lost my train of thought. But okay, so basically, I want to make the game scene look closer to what I would expect it to whenever we launch, which means the visual focus. And then that way, I think what'll be really nice is instead of having to rely on like a console log to make sure that all the actions are happening, I'll actually be able to see them play out a bit. And so that's kind of the goal that we're going to go for. Why did that profiler just have a... was I able to... Is it gone now? It's gone now. That weird, like, upshift for like a half a second was really interesting. Part of me wonders how much fluctuation normal computers have that I'm not used to having, or not used to seeing, like, visually. And then also how much of it is, like, the profiler every now and then has to, like, recheck in. So this might all just be normal, but just because I don't have any experience with it, it's standing out to me. Okay, we want to go into... No, that's not... We don't want to go to presentation. We want to go into... Oh, unless presentation's eating up the most time. There's a garbage collection happening. Collect incremental. Oh, so every now and then a garbage collector just comes through and fucking wipes something. Interesting. I wish I could know what it's garbage collecting. I wonder if there's a way to check that. Okay, anyways, I'm getting distracted. So yeah, I want to update the visuals to match this, which means my dumbass should probably change the stream name, because that would make sense. Yeah, let's rename this to setting up the visual system. And then we'll copy and paste that into the other one. Oh, Twitch thinks Twitch thinks my bitrate's unstable. Average stream bitrate's too high. Okay, it still thinks that I'm too high. I dropped it by 500. So next time I'll drop it by 500 again, and then see where we end up. It might be the case that it's expecting like 7K or something, and YouTube can still handle that. So if YouTube can still handle that, then I want to find the nice ground between what YouTube is expecting and what Twitch doesn't want to be over. So, all right. So yeah, that's basically what we're gonna do. So let me, if I drag this over here, yeah, it swaps to that, because that tool is set up that way. That's fine. We'll leave it over there for now. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start working on the visual system. So what I did is I'm starting to set up a hash map. And so I thought about indexing out a 0 array of byte to, like, agent ID to visual model or prefab that ends up getting spawned. But the issue that I'm running into is I don't want to... I don't like the idea of zeroing out game objects, because game objects tend to have a lot of garbage collection. They tend to be a bit more expensive. So I'm thinking I do a hash map for now, because the data can still contain zeroed out information, but the visual side of things should probably just be what's actually going to show up. So we're going to try that. Maybe I'll hate it and I'll swap to indexing, but that's what I do for now. And so I need to make sure. I was working on I made a shitty little prefab under the scene to edit it. It's a little capsule motherfucker. So I think we're gonna use that, and let me up the height by 0.5, or no, it's y 0.5. So that it's whenever we zero it out onto the tile that we're set. Okay, so we're gonna save that, and then let me make a quick checklist. Let's hop over to the notepad, Control A, delete. Okay, so we need to on spawn create a prefab and attach it to the visual data. Then we need to set up the camera better. Then we need to make the walls higher to match the 3D look. Then we're going to probably have to, on setting up the camera, like, cull the walls in some way. I'm not exactly sure. I'm thinking I'm going to go over the shoulder approach, or like a slightly zoomed out over the shoulder. So they're going to have to make sure that it doesn't like get blocked by any wall that's in between. So check in between. I need to know that term. Let me look that up actually real quick. I think it's like called occlusion. I don't have a ton of camera experience. I think it's occlusion. Camera occlusion detection. Yeah, when a camera object is obstructed. Yep, cool. Right thing. So we need to call that out. And then after that, I want to get I think I've technically broken the turn system a little bit because I removed the action system, because now that we direct right to the queue and pop the enemy actions immediately and pop the player actions immediately, because there's no like reaction system that needs to be processed, and we're just kind of feeding the actions in and waiting for the turn to properly sort that out. I need to do that. And also currently yeah, so let me write that. Make sure turn system works now. And then we need to also I only did this for testing, so we'll need to change this a little bit, but currently the enemies slower than the player don't go. So we need to fix that. So there's a little bit of a few tweaks that need to happen. And then I think that's it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I'm sure I'll find something, but that's it for now. So first we need to create it on spawn. Now here's the weird thing. We have a spawn system, but we've gutted it to put most of our spawning information inside the run generation system, because the spawn system should not be responsible for like getting all of the archetypes prepped and everything. That should be done in run gen, because run gen is probably going to have to change which archetypes show up or prep which archetypes and all that kind of stuff. And we want to kind of make sure that the flow of getting everything ready is done inside the run gen. So now spawn system is just a spawn function, really. So we got to figure out a way to, maybe I just feed it in the visual data as well and do that work for it so that it knows what to write to. I guess that's the lazy way we can do it. FRW. Told you this new keyboard's gonna kill me. Okay, and then let me actually, I just realized I all tabbed off of our chats through. So this is gonna be renamed to spawn agent. And okay, so we're going to find a good index to slot it into, then slot it into it. If I is equal to value or dot tier indexes. Why does this 4 have a semicolon at the end? Oh, no, that's just a really long for loop declaration. I see. The start of I is the index. The I is not equal to the end of the index. And then I plus plus. And the reason for that was we didn't want, because it's all, because the number of agents are a byte, we don't want it to flip through and then keep infinitely running, because we can't do less than 256. We want to use the 255th slot. So it's going to be not equal to 0, which is going to be our player. Okay, yep, that's right. And then if it is equal to 0, which means it's emptied out, then we're going to spawn everything here. And then all we're going to do at the end of this is okay. I don't think spawning an agent should maybe I actually should remove the VSD part of this. Maybe that should be a different function. Because what we want is we want to spawn the agent. We're probably going to have the spawn agent be inside, be called from the action system, right? So we're going to go, oh, we're running like the necromancer spawn skeleton action. Okay, we're going to spawn the skeleton here. So when that occurs, we don't want we don't want to also feed the VSD data yet. That needs to be a different function. So what we'll do is when we get to the visual system, the visual system will have to have some collection of... Would the visual system have a collection of recently spawned? Or would the behavior system store that? And then it'll just, oh, you've queued like a visual action that I should do, and so I need to process that. Actually, the easiest way to do this is, see, this is okay. So we have to add something to the list. I knew it was not going to be enough to add something to the list. Oh yeah, we have a bot. Slash and yeah, the thing we need to add, which is way more important, it's going to be the key to this, is we need to tie actions to visuals. We haven't done that yet. So what we need to do is we need a way to queue every action that's done to the visual system to prep those animations for us, which means we need to set up that queue system. And then either the action itself of spawning the skeleton will indicate, hey, this is a spawn, and so you need to add to the visual thing, or we need to, whenever we go to play that spawn animation, or what we need to do is we need to like create like a default world actor or like map manager agent, and he sends the queue, and all of his actions are distinct, like spawn or change time zone, change day night cycle or something along those lines, as his own action to send to the visual data that processes on top of that. So yeah, so what we're going to do, let's go back into here and we're going to remove this. And then going to hop to, yes, thank you. Appreciate you, Windows. We're gonna go here. Do we store that in behavior system data? Actually, here's what we'll do. This is way easier. We'll go into here and we will just make a new queue and call this action args and name this actions completed this cycle. Something like that. Or recently completed actions. No, this is fine. This was more distinct. And then we'll go back into here. Nope. And we're going to hop over to the visual system, and then the first thing once we run this, let's delete, or I'll just write above it. We won't touch that for now. We need to check that. So we need to grab VSD. And then VS, oh. We'd have to also grab BSD, and that's going to be read-only. Well, yeah, it'll be read-only, and we'll clear it on when behavior system comes back. It should not be the visual data's job to reset that. That should be behavior system's job. Okay, so we're going to make a new var called BSD, and that's going to be equal to system API dot get single and read-only behavior system data. I will get used to this keyboard, even if it fucking kills me. The hardest part is just the fact that the layout is different, and it's because they're if they're straight along with where your fingers would be. So normally, like on a QWERTY keyboard, it's offset slightly, and so I keep like reaching sideways slightly to hit different keys, and it's wrong. And then also you have thumb clusters now, so fuck me, I just spilled my water. Hold on. Ugh. Be right back. All right, we'll leave the towel on that for now. Okay. If no, we'll just do the 4. So yeah, thumb clusters. That's what I was saying. So yeah, backspace. My left thumb controls space, shift, tab, and enter, and my right has all of the brackets, curly brackets, and parentheses, and then backspace and delete in Windows. And so I'm trying to like get used to going back and forth on this. Okay, so for I guess you would do while for a Q, wouldn't you? BSD dot actions complete the cycle dot length. The hardest part is the up and down and left and right arrows are not where I'm used to them being. Everything's off. Okay, grand 0. I I should just not be streaming this. It's just actually, it's rage bait for how fucking bad I am at this. If what would we say? We would have to create a switch statement here to handle each action. Or maybe we just make a different data type. Because action args currently stores. Let me pull that up. This is going to be actions, action data. Action args currently stores the ID of the action, the ID of the agent, the direction, and the stage. No, I do need all that data. But I also would need. You could either do a tag. Although you could probably put those tags on the archetype. But for each of those, I would also need fuck. I'm out of it. I'm so out of it. And it's irritating me just sitting here. And then I know it's gonna irritate me watching, which then irritates me more. Fuck. Okay. Maybe I should just not stream right now as I meander on this. I'll need that data, but I will also need to know what kind of action it is, I think. Because I won't need to know for like moves and attacks, because those will have a pre-built animation set up, I think. But spawns will have to be tagged, so I'll need to add the thing. And well, maybe I would have to individually allocate, because like if you do a ranged attack, it doesn't matter that you play the bow animation. You also need to spawn the arrow. And you gotta play the sound effects. The sound effect actually is probably the least relevant part here, because you can just tag that into the combination. But how would I handle projectiles or like any other visual VFX that you would have to do unique to that one? You'd have to have a collection of the animation, but you don't want to make a switch statement for all the actions, because yeah, and here's the challenge. If I went through and I did the exact thing I did on the action system, where I made a whole switch statement of every action, the issue is that these actions are now specific to the unit. Because it's going to be a different VFX when the player shoots an arrow with his, like, normal looking human arrow versus when the skeletal archer sends out their bony, barbed, wired, infused arrow. It's going to be a different projectile. So there's going to have to be like a collection of VFX and positions that are stored and played alongside the action. But it's not going to be true of all of them. In fact, it probably won't even be true for most of them. So what we'll do, here's what we'll do. We're going to make another hash map. God, hash maps are just the best, you know that? Let's save hash map, and this is going to be a tuple, I think. Oh no, hold on. If I make it a tuple, I can't JSONify it. and that would be Cancer. Um, unless I save it in a JSON as, I don't know, like 3 arrays. I guess I could do that. And then I combine them. Because I have to, unfortunately, with unsafe collections, you have to custom, you can't just like make a data type and then set JSON equal to that data type, because you have to also declare the allocator, and there's no easy way to do that. So you have to write that out anyways. So I could just combine them. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. And so we're going to do, this will be a tuple of byte of agent ID and change that to ID, and also byte of action ID. And then what we're, oh, I hit tab. Okay. When navigating, you need to not do that. That will be to animation struct. Hold on, I'll need to make something for this. Particle effect. And that's going to contain maybe each entity stores a component, and that component has its particular particle effect. Hold on. Let me look into entity graphics real quick. Entity graphics has a bridge between ECS and Unity. Oh, hold on. Let me pop this out and then share this thing so you can actually see what the fuck I'm reading. Chrome temp. Change. Bam. Okay. Okay. Access a bridge. This allows you to use instead of game objects. Content area layout performance. Also, I saw in here that 1.0 fixed the thing where like your material meshes, if they swapped on runtime, it would like make like a new archetype. So they got rid of that. That's very good. The baking system uses mesh render and mesh filter components into a render mesh component on the entity. Depending on the render pipeline and your project uses, the baking system might also add other rendering related components.
There are two best practices to instantiate enemies at runtime: prefabs and the render mesh utility to add components API. Unity bakes prefabs to an optimal data layout during baking. There are no additional structure changes during instantiation. Use prefabs if you want to instantiate complex objects. If you want to build the entity from a C# script, use the render mesh utility to add components API. This API automatically adds all the graphics components the active render pipeline requires. Don't add graphics components manually. This is less efficient, adds structural changes, and is not forward compatible with future Okay. Entity graphics collects the data necessary for rendering entities and sends this data to Unity's existing rendering architecture. Entity graphics supports the URP. We're using URP. The simplest way to install Entity graphics is to use Unity's project templates for your new project. The templates set up the project with some necessary packages with the correct configuration. Entity graphics is an active development that goes to reach full high-definition render pipeline and universal feature coverage. The only exceptions are select old deprecated features in each render pipeline that now have modern replacements. The following table compares Entity graphics feature support between HDRP and URP. Decal shader, particle shader, layered lit shader. Oh. Lid tessellation shader, render layer, motion blur. Okay, wait, hold on. The ones we cared about are these are the ones we don't have. Okay. Color space. Only linear color space is supported. Okay. Only forward plus is supported. I don't know what that means. Experimental texture streaming, no. Streaming virtual textures, no. Ray tracing. Okay. Section of the documentation contains information on the various features in Entity graphics. Can you replace? Can you do mesh overrides? This version of mesh information experimental. This means it isn't ready yet to use for production, and part of the implementation API will change. Also, this version doesn't support some features that exist for the skinned mesh render component. This page describes how to use skinning and blend shapes to deform meshes. Okay, I don't want to do that. I'm hoping that this lets me set the mesh to be the type of the enemy. Though if I have... If I have a different mesh for each enemy, and I have a different animation set... No, I don't want to prefab this. I really don't. Because what I'd like, because then if I have to change anything, it all fucking takes forever. I want to just have a folder that I read in, and I assign them a collection, and then I pick the right one, and then I rip that in, slot in the mesh, slot in the animation set. Like, I do not want to deal with this. Okay. Yeah, we're not doing that. I will take the performance hit to not use Entity graphics if I have to. Entity graphics features. To render entities with entity graphics, shaders must be dots instancing compatible. For default URP and higher P shaders, they are already dots compatible. Okay. If you have custom material properties and shader components that you want it to be dots instanced, see material overrides. Okay. Entity graphics provide a sample scene which demonstrates a simple unit shader, unlit shader, which renders using dots instancing. For more information, see sample projects. I'll open that just in case. This feature allows you to query monobehavior components in ECS system script by attaching monobehavior components to entities without converting them to iComponent data. This also means that managed companion components do not benefit from the fast performance that ECS components have. Following graphics-related companion components are supported by entity graphics. Light reflection probe, text mesh. Is that like in-world UI? Sprite renderer, particle system, visual effect, decal projector, local volumetric fog, volume plus sphere, adaption probe volume. Note the conversion of camera components is disabled by default because the scene main camera can't be a companion component entity. To enable this conversion, add a hybrid entities camera conversion to find your project settings. Unity updates the transformer companion entity component whenever it updates the local to world component. You can write ECS queries including both iComponent and managed companion components. However, these queries cannot be burst compiled and must run in the main thread because managed components aren't thread safe. To do this for each instead of iJob entity. Oof. Okay. Entity graphics built on top of the Unity Engine batch render group API. This API connects entity graphics to the Unity Engine backend. If you use entity graphics, you don't need to interact with this API directly. Oh, okay. Oh, perfect. Runtime entity creation. Perfect. This is what I was looking for. To render an entity requires an entity contains a specific minimum set of components. This API takes an entity and adds the components entity graphics requires based on the given mesh and material, and a render mesh description, which is a struct that describes additional render settings. There are two versions of the API. I really like the idea of a naming convention where config settings are described as a description. I like that. I might have to steal that. Instead of config or settings or some other shit. Description is because the code describes the. I like that a lot, actually. I am going to steal that. Now I'm just trying to think if there's anything I need to rewrite in this project that has that naming convention, or that could have that naming convention. I could change the. What's the name of that data or turn data class or struct? Is it called like action params or action archetype? I could change it to action description. Okay. Only one version accepts a render mesh. For instance, on the structure of a render mesh, see render mesh. Entity graphics only uses this version during the game object baking process. Using this version at runtime doesn't produce rendering entities. A second version accepts a render mesh array. Render mesh description. A render mesh description struct describes when and how to draw an entity. It contains a mesh filter settings, which specifies layer, shadowing, and motion vector settings, and light probe usage settings. Oh, this all sounds beautiful. Okay. A render mesh describes which mesh and material an entity should use. A render mesh array contains a list of meshes and materials that a collection of entities share. Each entity can efficiently select from any mesh and material inside this array using the material mesh info component created using the material mesh info from render mesh array indices method. During game object baking, entities graphics attempts to pack all meshes and materials in a single subscene into a single shared render mesh array to minimize chunk fragmentation. Oh, so it already stores it as an array. Is this a component that I make, or do I just write to this component? I need to see example. Example usage. Add components example. Public mesh public material. Material, public entity count. Generate tests for burst compatibility is a spawn job. Oh, they did inside a job. Thank you for this. Okay. Entity prototype. Int is entity count. Command parallel writer. Okay. Var e is equal to ecb.instantiate of index prototype. ecb.set component of index e new local to world value is equal to compute transform. Prototype is all correct components up front. Can use set component to set values. Oh, so this is to spawn it at the right position. Compute transform int index. Yep, translate new float 3. Okay, so that's to spawn it. Start world, default game injection world, entity manager, ECB equals new ECB, description equals new render mesh description, var render mesh array, render mesh array equals new render mesh array, new material, new mesh array, mesh. Var prototype is equal to entity manager dot create entity. Creates empty base entity. Call add components to populate base entity with the components required by entity graphics. Prototype, entity manager, description, render mesh array, material mesh info dot from render. Spawn most of the entities in a burst job by cloning a pre-created prototype entity, which can either be a prefab or an entity created at runtime, like in this sample. Var spawn job equals new spawn job. Prototype is equal to prototype. ECB equals to as parallel writer. Entity count is equal to entity count. Spawn handle is equal to schedule. Spawn handle dot complete. Add components. Okay, so this render mesh utility adds these components to the object that is calling add components. So it's to the owner of this script. So I can just do render mesh utility dot add components to the visual manager, and then that will add the mesh to the VM, and then the VM can take that array and then populate with all my meshes and then slot it in. If this is how this works, I will kiss whoever made this, because that sounds exactly what the fuck I want. Then we play back, we dispose, and we destroy the entity. Oh, I hope to God that's what this does. This page describes how to use entity graphics for rendering performance in your project. Entity Graphics bakes authoring game objects into entities and creates batch render group batches, which generate a list of draw commands for rendering. Each draw command renders a group of instances that have the same mesh and material. Batch rendering groups makes a draw call setup lightweight and efficient with a special fast patcher, the SRP batcher. I'm a little bit lost, but I'm nodding along. The rule optimizing rendering with dots and instancing is very similar to SRP batcher and game objects. By dividing instances per draw instance calls, you get a rough estimation of the batch efficiency. The higher the number of instances per draw call, the better the performance. Okay, so the more you can bulk do it, the better. That makes sense. If your objects are rendered with distance instancing, the draw events of those objects will appear as hybrid batch group on the frame debugger with a shader keyword called dots instancing on. For example, for a scene having 100 cubes of the same material in subscene, open enable frame debugger, navigate to an opaque object draw call, select the hybrid batch group on the right under the keywords. They're listed dots instancing on. On the output section of the above keywords, draw instance calls equals 1, instance equals 100. In this case, since all the cubes are using the same mesh material, therefore all the 100 cubes are batched into one draw instance calls, which means that rendering is the highest batching efficiency. For a scene having 100 objects in 5 scenes with 5 different materials and 10 different meshes, that equals 2 draw instance calls, 20. Higher number of instances per draw instance calls. Oh, 5 different materials, so there's 20 objects per. So why are we only doing 2 calls and not 5 or 5? Oh, 5 different materials and 10 different meshes. So it's going to be 1 call. In this, it draws 20 objects with 2 draw instance calls, and each draw instance call represents a mesh. This means batching efficiency is 10 instances per 1 draw, which is much lower than the above example. So yeah, the more variation you have, the worse it's going to be for you. That makes sense. This all sounds based as fuck. Okay. Okay, so I think for runtime usage, what I'm hearing is that I can call render mesh utility inside the visual manager as long as it's not example burst job that creates. Oh, that's the spawn job. The start. I can't put the. I don't think I can burst this function, but I can render mesh utility to add components. Okay, let's go back into the code. See if we can do something with this. Oh, yeah, I need to write this in as particle effect. And we're gonna name this what are we gonna name this? Oh, duh. particle agent particles or something like that. I'm telling you, I'm fucking slow on these late night coding sessions. Okay, I'm slow in general. Okay, we're just gonna set this to, I don't know, byte ID or something. We'll just leave it for now. So then we're gonna go over to here, and we're going to, well, actions that complete the cycle that count is greater than 0. We need to animate action check for particles to spawn check if it's a spawning action and create the entity. I think if I set up this system, I think I am gonna have to create a like world entity that separately spawns the new enemies that come out on the map that aren't like directly spawned from like a necromancer or something like that. Okay. I think so. Yeah, I think if we go into start, because that's where it was. Oh wait, can I do that in an I system, do you think? Or do you think I'm gonna have to change this? This is a class. Oh, you are adding components to this. Maybe I can add it to over here. We'll go down a bit. Or no, you know what it is? We'll do this. Let's do that, and then we'll implement those methods. Okay, and then on start running, this will run once the visual data and all that has been added. We'll do var visual data is going to be equal to system API dot singleton read write. And then I want to do not tab. I need to stop hitting tab. So that with entity? I don't remember. Fuck. Hold on. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. I wonder if I can parentheses this to also get the... Nah, fuck it. We'll just... we'll name the system entity is equal to system and the name of this function was render mesh utility. Prototype was the base entity? Oh. Okay, so yeah, I should be able to enter in SE. What's the issue? Hold on. Okay, yeah, that's just not complete yet. Okay, that's what it's wanting. State.entity manager. And then render mesh description. New. New. Okay. And now technically we could add oh, let me delete that. Okay. Let's save this and then see what does Control D do in Vim? Because I keep accidentally hitting it, and I actually should probably know that. What does Control D do in Vim? Vim cheat sheet. Control F. Control. Move cursor and screen down half page. Oh, okay. Control D, and then the other one was Control U. Oh, Control down, Control up. Ah, oh, that's actually really useful. Man, every time I learn like a Vim macro, I'm like, oh wait, what the fuck did I just press? I hate that. And then I'm like, oh wait, that's like a super useful thing that I should do more often. What was the one? There was one where I was like, oh, how do I delete up to something? Because I wanted to delete like a section, but not delete the character. I think it was GT. How to delete up to a character exclusive range in Vim. DT and then the thing. Yeah, so you would do like, oh, I want to delete up to the parenthesis. DT parenthesis. Oh, I need to do that way more. What an awesome thing. And then I think it was DG. So if I do GG equals. Oh, well, did I fuck it up? G equals. No? DG parentheses? Okay, I don't think it was DG. And then how did you do it? Oh, it's DU, is that? DU parenthesis. Nope. du parenthesis. No. Is R insert? R must be insert. And then it's E W G takes you to the top of the page if I double tap it. Huh. And then is shift you to the bottom? Okay, interesting. And then I can use control up. Oh, no. Control up. I'm hitting the wrong button. Undo. Control up. There we go. Control down. Awesome. Okay. I'm getting sidetracked. Let's alt tab into here, let that recompile, and then we'll hit play and see if it adds the proper component mesh arrays and everything to our entity, because if it does, it'll be beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna go into, we don't want an agent. We want to grab, I also need to figure out how to group tiles so that I don't have to look at this big fucking long list of tiles. System data. Did I throw an error? I threw an error. Material mesh info does not point to a valid mesh. Oh, do I have to have a default in there in order for this to work? Visual System 70. Add components. The first one is the entity, right? Entity, then entity manager, then description, then array. Or I guess 70 points to the whole block, probably. Visual System 78. How are we getting to on stop running before we hit the... Why is the game camera not empty right now? We're not even in the... The fuck is happening? Hit play. Okay. Material mesh does not point to a valid mesh. Okay, let's see what that means. Material mesh info does not point to a valid mesh. Does it already have to have a mesh render on it? That doesn't make sense. We're adding that to this. Hold on. Oh, maybe I have to declare the new material. Maybe I have to copy this. And then if I go into, that's for the mesh array. Okay, so maybe if I go, nope. I actually just paste this into here. Okay, so we're gonna put that there. I don't have a default material, so we're just gonna delete that. Why are we expecting another? Oh, for the end of the components. Okay. So then we'll just do that. Nope, wrong one. There. Okay, and then we're gonna save this. I'll tab back in and then see if that fixes it. Also, I'm probably gonna go to bed in about 10 minutes because it is late as fuck. Material mesh input is not 0.12. Material mesh info is equal to default. Mesh render mesh array dot get mesh material mesh info. If mesh is equal to null, so you do have to give it a mesh info then. So why would you create a default for me? Why would you make that optional if it's just gonna always return null? Mesh equal to render. Oh wait, no, this is from. This is a get mesh. Okay, so we have to have a default mesh to feed into this then. That's what I'm hearing. I think I know a mesh I can grab. So let me do that real quick. We'll just go into system data authoring. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say have to go into system data. 1 second. Or no, system data authoring doesn't have a particular. So what we'll do is we'll say, we'll just start in utilities for now, just as a quick test. So public mesh utilities, or no, public mesh test, and then no, delete. There we go. And then what we'll say is go to here. There. What's the issue? Must be a valid unmanaged type. Let's just Control Z this then. Okay, it's too late. I need to go to bed. I'm losing focus, and I'm just zoning the fuck out. Okay. Kill me. This is such a shit stream. Alright. Well, hopefully I'll see you guys around sometime. Peace.